Hey everybody, so today I'm going to strip the silver off my silver plate without using I guess dangerous chemicals. We're just going to use a little bit of stuff we can get at the local grocery. Now, pretty sure the first thing you need is it would be salt, but you don't want see how this says ionized. You want unionized salt. And that seems to work the best. Right here it says this salt does not supply iodine, so that's the salt you want to use. I normally I've used probably half a pound per gallon and a half. Next thing I like to use is I use this all copper Brillo, because you do have to scratch off all the silver that's kind of stuck there. It will flake off pretty well. And third thing, just because if you don't wear them, you can turn your fingers green from the copper. We'll get some large gloves. But between those three things, that's everything. Only thing I had to buy. So it's going to be about $5. All right, let's see what else we get, or see how we do. So this is some of the silver plate I've put together for the experiment. What I recommend is stuff that has very few edges, because if you get a lot of here, we'll do this one here, all these little ridges make it, I don't know, the silver just makes it hard for it to come off when you have like very few little ridges. Also, I like these non-rolled edges. These trays tend to be copper inside, and the copper then I can then sell what's left over. So we're at 9.5 pounds. I'm going to try to get to, I'm going to do a 25 pounds at a time. We'll put the silver in a bag and smelt it all into a bar and see how much we get for 100 pounds of silver plate. But since we're doing mostly doing the copper trays, it's going to cost very little on what we end up with at the end in waste. Like, we shouldn't have too many brass trays in here, so that means I'll get a premium for the metal that's left over, and it will be very close to what we have into the silver plate itself to scrap after I scrap the copper. So I guess we had 12 and a half, 16. All right, I need 6 more pounds, and then we have 25 pounds altogether. You can see the copper inside this one. And 1 more pound. All right, we're a little bit over 25 pounds for the first batch. All right, I'm gonna go get some water and show you how we have it all set up. That made the 25 pounds right there. All right, so I have my silver plate set up here. I'm gonna be running 2 experiments, just trying to keep it moving because there's a lot of silver plate in this bucket, and I have backup battery chargers for once. What's going to happen is these will heat up and they'll click off, and this here is going to be the rinse tank. So once it comes out of where the salt water is, it will go into the rinse tank to rinse the silver off. But so what I do now is I just cover the bottom of this little tub with the salt that we just bought at the grocery store. I'll do both of them. Got one. And I saved just a little bit for, I'll show you in a second. I have a little spritz bottle, and the spritz bottle, I clean a lot of the copper that will seep out of this. Now, you don't get pure silver from the silver plate. It ends up being maybe a little bit better than 925, but there is going to be a lot of copper mixed into this, and I definitely don't play with the chemicals, and I don't recommend it unless you have like a whole little vent system and everything to then turn it into pure 999. And I only need the silver that I'm going to make. I plan on using it in jewelry castings, so it just needs to be like a 925. So if it's a little bit better than 925, it's not going to mess up my my jewelry. I have a bucket of water here, and basically I'm going to, actually I have another one here. It's smaller, it's easier with one hand. So I just add a little bit more water. And it will hopefully dissolve most of that salt. Now it's just salt water we're using here, so I can use my hand right now. Don't need gloves yet. You're not going to turn yourself green. It's basically like when you wear copper jewelry. It can turn yourself, looks like a skull, doesn't it? In the water. Don't try this at home, I guess. But the salt will basically mostly all dissolve pretty fast. The next thing you need, so I have the 2 battery chargers. The next thing you need are pieces of stainless steel. So this is a piece of stainless steel that, so that's a magnet right there. That's unmagnetic. Definitely makes it better. Make sure you test it with a magnet. The larger I bought this at the thrift store for $1.50. I got this one, and its sister plate. They were taped together. But the more surface area you have, the more silver plate you'll be able to do. This one also is non-magnetic and it's a little bigger, so I'll probably use that instead of the little plate. And the stainless steel will get the negative charge on your with your battery terminal. So I'll set that up real fast. I like to use a clamp, actually. I have this clamp right here, but any type of clamp will work for holding the stainless steel to the sidewall. You don't want it to touch your silver plate, because then you end up with I just use the negative clamp and that seems to work. So I just added the last bit of salt into my rinse bottle, and the salt water is all dissolved. This is the fresh water though, so didn't need to add any salt to that. And I think it's about ready. I have both my negatives hooked up. I use these old car cables because they act as better clamps, and they're copper. You don't want to get the metal spring wet though, because you'll get some iron in your solution. So all I have to do is plug in the chargers. I'm gonna try this guy and this nice little tray. I think the little one I'll put on in here. Now you can put it all the way down into the water. You just don't want to get the steel submerged. And for that, if I plug in, one second, plug it in the plug. So as soon as I plug it in, it should turn on. Yep. Now you see the reaction happening here on the stainless steel with the negative current, and then this is the positive. And you let it sit for about 8 minutes, 10 minutes. I'll do the same thing with this one over here. Boom, boom, boom. This one we'll put like this. The reason I have multiple battery chargers is it will heat up the water, but it not enough to melt my plastic tub or anything. But they have little circuits in them, the battery chargers do, and as soon as they get too hot, they'll trip. So there's just a little bit of silver plate, but this is a heavy bowl. What will happen with that is, see, here's the copper. Everything will come off except for where it was submerged. This was a better example on this side. So the silver plate right there will come off, and the copper will then be exposed, and you'll be ready to sell the copper tray as copper. And hopefully, let's plug this one in. You can see this is a little higher current. Now you can touch the water, you're not going to get electrocuted, you're dealing with low voltage. It will spark if you put the two together. You do not want the silver plate tray to touch the stainless steel, because then kind of completes the circuit and makes the battery charger work too hard. Let's see if I can get that down just a hair more. There, it's all the way in the water now. So the only thing that I find is, see how this is starting to turn black? I'll have to flip it in about 5 minutes, so the other side then gets exposed to, I'll call the negative ions. I don't know. So you can see it's making real nice. But this one, there's probably I think this is a 12 amp. Or no, this is a 10 amp. This is on 10 amps and this is on 6 amps. So the 10 amp does go a lot faster and it works better. I picked up all the battery chargers at the flea market, and I just got this one out of the trash yesterday, so hopefully this one works. It looks like it does. That way I'll have a good 5 things going. Alright, I'll get back to you guys as soon as I flip it around. So, I don't know if you guys can see all the way down there. There's the edge of the silver plate starting to turn white. So that means the silver is basically ready to come off of that piece of copper that it's on. And what I'm going to do though is I'm just going to turn the whole, without getting my hands wet or anything, turn the whole plate around and rest that back on this side, and it should be ready to go in about 4 or 5 minutes. Now you can put a wood spacer in there or something like that to hold it up. I haven't really messed with this too much today, but it would be kind of easier if it had like a little place for me to, maybe even a wood rod that this clamp rested against in the center. I think I'm gonna go do that. That's what I used last time, was the spring. So as long as it's not touching the negative, it will be fine and not grounded out or anything. Make sure can even bring it everything a little closer to, see how the spring holds the edge of the bucket and keeps everything from moving. I'll do the same thing on this side. I have 2 of those springs. So that was the circuit getting hot on that. Look at that on the edge. Never seen that happen. Could have been touching I could have slid and hit the negative, and that's what that might have been. See how there's a lot more gunk in this one. Bowl's just a little bit too big to be completely submerged. And that would make sense why the reaction had stopped. It must have been grounded out on itself. And you don't want that because it just warms the battery charger up too hot, so then I'll have to switch out battery chargers sooner than later. Alright, I'm gonna get this the next step is where you need the gloves. because we are going to pick up the plate and put it into the fresh water. All right. So everything seems to be going pretty good. I think I'm going to clean this guy off first because it's definitely running a lot of electric through it. First I'll unplug it. Then using the gloves, I'll unclamp it, stick it on the side, and I just rinse off the salt water, or the salt water that's containing all the coppers. Can't get it all off, but it just works pretty well for putting it into my cleaning solution. See the white, the light color? So put this over here. I need to go get my sponge. Give me 1 second. I have the sponge right here. And basically all I do is let's see, is that coming off yet? Might have been too oh, there it is. You can see how it's just flaking off all the silver. This has like a white metal base to it, not a copper. I think that's why it was very gently. The biggest problem is, see, here's a huge piece of silver right there. See it? Just biggest problem with this method is you do need to clean the pieces after you're done, and it's a lot like doing dishes. So if you don't like doing dishes, I don't recommend this way. Because after you can see more silver, the silver just peels right off. I don't want to goop the water up too much, so that way you can see the next one. I'll use both hands to rub and scrub. The reason why I might have had this might be like a pewter base or something like that, or brass, I'm not sure. Or maybe it's double coated, who knows. Look like, but you can see all the silver floating around, and after you scrub everything off, it works pretty well. I'm just going to grab that other one real fast. So this one should have a decent amount of silver on it. It is a good maker. It's made by Reed and Barton, this plate, and you can see how it's kind of like a white light color. I'm just washing off a lot of the little pieces of copper, and there is some silver in this. There's not anywhere near as much as when we peel it on the other side, or clean it on the other side. But the reason I put salt water in this bottle is I didn't want, you don't want to make your solution diluted. All right, clean this one real fast. And basically, I'll repeat this maybe 30 or 40 times. I like to do other scrap or work in the warehouse. Now this, see how that just came right off all the black? You can see the flakes of silver. Probably better result on this side. But you can start seeing the copper coming through. There, that one came off. The whole sheet came off right there. I have a little scraper. I figured I was going to try that real fast. That was, where is it? It has the brass bristles, but I was thinking maybe you could see the silver just peel off there with that little bit of scraper. But again, I just figured it's a lot of washing dishes. So, and then after this is all done, this one maybe is brass, not copper. I can't tell. You can see that piece of silver right there though, just like hanging off. Now when I send this to the smelter, I think the last one I got was, I averaged 0.89. The best I ever did was 0.13% silver at the smelter. Plus they pay for the copper and I don't have to wash dishes. But it'll be interesting out of 100 pounds if we end up with 0.8 of a pound, or got pretty close to what I get when they do it at the smelter. I believe at the smelter they melt everything, turn it into a big bar, and then put it in an acid bath. So that's my guess. All right, I'm gonna finish cleaning these up and I'll show you what it looks like. This was my experiment bag too. So I got, from the first experiment, I got this little bits of silver. And the second one, I didn't clean it as good. There's a little bit of copper mixed in there. But I got this nice big baggie of silver. And this is about 10 pounds or 8 pounds of plate. I didn't weigh it out. I was thinking maybe we would, I got some borax and flux. I was thinking maybe we'll try to experiment with melting this and see how it does while I'm working on deplating the 25 pounds. So another good reason to wear gloves, you see all the copper, I guess it's copper, on the, that's mixed into the solution. And again, it will turn you green, but it still will run new pieces of silver plate. I like to probably change the solution after maybe 10 pounds, just because it starts to really get fairly gross. Wanted to show you, this was the one tray that we did. There's still little bits of silver on the corner. You can see right there, right where the clamp was, the silver didn't come off. The sticker, where the sticker was, it stayed on. If I scrubbed a little harder, I probably could get those pieces off, but I don't know. In my opinion, that's done. Let's see if I can show you the, I don't know if you guys can see all that silver, the silver pieces on the bottom. If I So that's off of a tray and a half. I put the other one back in because it wasn't quite done. I just will continue and repeat, and soon we won't be able to see into this cleaning bucket because it will get to it'll turn a light green. Even though I rinse it, it still gets a little bit of copper from the solutions. So plan is to finish the rest of the deplating of this bucket, and we'll see how much silver we have. Started setting up my workshop. I put the still I bought. I really like the Cowboy. I did find a signature on him. Where was it? Right there. It's CF. I'm not sure who made the jug, but I don't know. Just starting to put things in the warehouse. All right. So I haven't got much done. Probably about 6 trays. The copper ones, it came off very easy. The brass ones, not as much. I would say there's still probably 10-20% of the silver still on the brass trays. The copper trays are almost 100% cleaned off. The water did turn a rusty brown, but underneath there's a bunch of silver flakes. I had to switch out the first battery charger. The one that I picked out of the trash the other day is running like a champ. You can see how everything's just still working. So I don't know, probably been at it about an hour and a half. I did a little bit of scrapping, a little bit of organizing, but definitely takes a long time to get this done. So make sure you have another project that you can work on while you're sitting here waiting in between washing dishes. All right, so I got my first experiment on melting some silver. It's just almost there. You can see it. It's almost a liquid puddle. We got probably a second or two left, and kind of just is about ready. I'm just gonna pour it out on the table right now and let it dry. I'll make a little button, but actually I probably just turn off the gas and we can just pick out the button. So I guess that's what I'll do. But I need a nice little button. I don't have my mold set up. I just wanted to see if my my little gas torch would make a nice little button like that. Let's see why it's still hot. Should be able to make it come out. There it is. So this is all fire brick, so it's not going to burn. And the stuff in there is mostly the borax, so I don't know. I'm going to melt this up next and see how see if I can get a button just like what I just made. I did make this out of 3 little silver chains. So alright, I'm gonna set that up. Well, I think it finally finished up. I stirred it a little. There's still one little so we'll let that melt down into that puddle and see what we end up with. Just hot enough now. Don't want to melt the GoPro though. see it just worked itself down into the puddle. I'm going to turn it off and see what we have. So I know that's all flux, that, and my the silver will be this guy right here. I could probably just, it's not very much silver. I mean, it could have been because I had so much flux, but no, sure doesn't seem like very much silver at all. It's a smaller button. I don't know why it took so long to pour. So, all right. The rest of this stuff is all flux. Probably should have poured that out of the crucible, but it's fine. This was from 3 necklaces, and that was just from half a bag of the silver plate. It's still working. It's definitely got a bunch of gunk on the bottom. It almost looks like cheese. I turned this one off so you could see I let it all settle. It's like a copper cottage cheese that settles at the bottom. And there is a little bit of silver mixed in with that. You just have to kind of pan it out. So, all right. I'm almost, not quite halfway done. I don't think I'll be able to finish this today just because I have a birthday party I got to get to. I thought it would be a lot faster. I see a piece of silver all the way. Big flake of silver right there, you see it? Came off of a piece of plate. But it is all working out. I'm happy with the experiment so far. Just plug that back in. You can see the reaction starts immediately. But I think I'm going to cut it here, and I'll show you how much silver I got on this 25 pounds. And I guess that will be part 2 of this video. Thank you for watching. If you guys haven't yet, please subscribe. And hopefully you found this fairly interesting. Check out part 2 tomorrow. Peace. So I poured the rest of my bag of my experiment into the crucible, and I switched tips to a larger tip, and it seems like it's melting way faster. So I'm going to put this button in with that, and that way I'll see how much I end up with for my first bag of silver plate. I think this was only about 1 or 3 plates, but I'm going to keep my the first button I made. Just figured I'd give you guys a little extra. Let's see if that button ends up bigger than my 3 necklaces. Because doing jewelry, I find a lot of silver, especially necklaces and rings and stuff. It might be way easier just melting the silver jewelry you find than washing dishes like I've been doing all day.